Here we're reading the whole Bible this year. Today is day 308, and we're reading Matthew 22 and Mark 12. There's several sections here that are similar or parallel, and then there are a couple that are unique to each of the chapters. The parable of the tenants and the parable of the wedding banquet are similar in theme and meaning. They're both about bringing people into the kingdom. They're both about participation in the kingdom. One of them highlights the tenants who are left in charge of things, the Israelites, and finding that they have not done a good job. They've rejected every prophet. They've rejected everyone God has sent, including the son, and they're going to kill him. It says they beat most of the messengers who come, and then they kill the son, thinking we can take over if we do this. The parable of the wedding feast is very similar. Everybody's invited to be part of this. Again, talking about the Israelites, talking about the people of God. The kingdom of God is at hand. And they're like, no, I'm not into that. And so they're not coming to the feast. It says, go out and grab anybody, like the Gentiles, the undesirables, those who you don't see as righteous. All of them will be invited in, and they will take your place. And then all of those who had something better to do or had some weak reason why they wouldn't come, they will all be left out. But the parable of the wedding banquet has this weird passage where it says, all of a sudden the master realizes, hey, you're not wearing the right stuff. Get out. And they take him and bind him hand and foot and throw him out into the darkness. Then why do they do that? If he didn't have the right stuff, like, does that mean that God is going to, only invite certain ones? Well, no, it says the invitation is for all, but it's not that he showed up in the wrong garments, because they invited just people from the highways and from the streets and stuff. They wouldn't have had the right wedding clothes either. It's something that they get. It's probably relating to like the righteousness of Christ, that we're clothed with Christ as we're baptized in him. And so it's probably that, like people who try to show up and they're like, oh, I came in a different way. You don't get to stay. You don't get to be part of this. And I don't think this supports like the Calvinist interpretation of election, where only certain ones are actually chosen. I don't think that's really what Jesus is saying. That's not really in line with the kinds of things he's generally teaching. It seems more like, just like with the tenants, the point is there are people invited in to participate in the kingdom, and it is on those who respond accordingly and believe that they will be chosen. And it is a big deal to not do it. Both the rejection of Christ is a big deal because they're rejecting and killing the son. But then also on the other side of it, like the penalty for that is not nice. It's going to be harsh. It's going to be eternal damnation. That's not something we're going to want or we can just blow off. Both of these accounts include the questions of marriage and the resurrection, questions about paying taxes to Caesar and whether or not it's right to do so, questions about the Greatest Commandment. And then Mark's treatment of the Greatest Commandment is a bit different from Jesus's. And then he goes into whose son is the Christ. That's in both. And then Mark also adds or has the widow's offering, that she gives two, like the cheapest denominational coins and puts those in. And it seems that all of this, even the two parables we just talked about, all revolves around the Greatest Commandment. What is the Greatest Commandment? What is the point? It's to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. Everything hangs on those. Everything else is related to those. In Mark, the guy who asks responds with, oh yeah, that was a great answer. This is more important than anything else, offering sacrifices or doing any of the tithes or any of it. This is the important thing. But also, that's why we do all of these things. That's why we worship. That's why we serve. That's why we submit to Christ. It's out of love. Everything goes back to that. Even if we were good managers, if he comes back and finds that we had betrayed him by not loving him and that we did it out of selfish ambition, that it won't qualify. It's about reestablishing relationship. Originally, humans were created for a relationship with each other and with God. And if we're ignoring that or missing that, if we're denying the son and then trying to get in on other merits, we won't make it. And so I think it's a good It's a good heart check. Am I really leading and living and serving out of a place of love for God? Or am I developing other motives and standards? Is there something else that's really at the foundation of everything that I'm doing? I think a good question for us all continually and repeatedly, regularly ask ourselves. I'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, and comments. What is God speaking to you in this? Let's talk about that in the chat. Thanks for joining us. Be rad for Jesus.